Order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Senator Berg. Senator Embry.
Here. In the room.
Senator Hornback. Senator Smith.
Here.
Senator Turner. Senator Wheeler.
Here. In the room.
Senator Wilson.
Here.
Senator Wise.
Here.
Senator Yates.
Here.
Vice Chair Storm.
Here.
Chairman Higdon.
Here. All right. Thank you all for being here this morning. And I would take a motion for the approval of the February 10th, 2021 meeting minutes. We have a motion by Senator Smith and a second by Senator Wilson. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We don't have anybody attending remotely today, so just want to remind everybody you can attend meetings remotely if you're a legislator and on this committee. But if you're anywhere other than your capital office or your annex office, you cannot vote remotely unless you're here on campus. So with that said, our first guest this morning is a very busy guy. You stand out in front of that snow plow. We want to get be careful there, Secretary Gray. There's a snow plow behind you. Secretary Gray, if you don't mind, identify yourself for the record, and the floor is yours. We're anxious to hear about revenue and bid lettings and anything else you want to enlighten us on. Secretary Gray.
All right, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate you recognizing that snowplow in the background. I was going to say that I'm in my office today, but just out of the interest in our remembering what we've just gone through, I wanted to put this background up because I know everyone on the committee is very mindful of what we've just gone through. And I want to say thanks to all the members of our cabinet. So many were involved in our snow and ice removal and are, of course, still involved in the cleanup work that's underway. So that's the reason I did that. I also want to introduce who's with me today, of course, is Deputy Secretary Mike Hancock, the Transportation Cabinet's Budget Director Robin Brewer, and the Transportation Cabinet's Director of Program Management Ron Rigney. And I think I suspect that everyone on this committee knows these folks, but I want to give a special recognition to them. And they may need to help me if we've got some good questions. I know that we've got a limited amount of time, though, Senator Higdon. Mr. Chairman, you said about 10 minutes, so I'm going to go through. You all asked us to share with you the status of the road fund and our progress toward delivering the highway plan, the enacted plan, and an update on any other concerns that we have about transportation in Kentucky. So I'm going to try to do that. And to preface my remarks, I thought about this, and when we worked on these remarks, we all together were thinking, what would be the question that the members of the committee might ask themselves? And my thinking was that the question that you all might ask is, what does the General Assembly want Kentucky's transportation system and therefore our economy to look like in 5 years from now, or in 15 years, or in 30 years? So some of the things that we're going to share with you today are going to actually speak to that forward vision and what things could look like, what they're looking like now with the conditions that we're in. So I'm going to show you in just a moment that if we want anything more than just maintaining the system we already have, and actually maybe even declining, because I'm going to talk about the cost of highway construction today. But if we want anything more than just maintaining the system, it's going to be very difficult to achieve it with what we have today, which is essentially a flat-lined revenue stream. Now, that's a flat-lined revenue stream at a time when construction costs, highway construction costs, in just the last 7 years have gone up more than 30%. So just bear that in mind as we go through things. So first, the status of the road fund. Now, as many of you know, I'd say all of you know, a large part of our available funding for the Cabinet's program and all of our county and municipal road money comes from the motor fuels usage fee. Motor fuels revenues have essentially been flat since the price of gasoline fell by almost $2 a gallon in 2015, and our revenues fell that year by 150, and over the last 6 years, by anywhere from 150 million to $180 million per year. So translate that, since 2014, 7 years now, the Cabinet has lost more than $1 billion in revenues due to the rapid decline in gasoline prices in 2015. That's more than $1 billion in revenues. Now, as our revenues fell, the Transportation Cabinet had to shift its philosophy about road fund expenses, and in particular, the focus of the 6-year highway plan. We had to prioritize our efforts. Less revenues, so we had to prioritize. What are we going to focus on? So the priority one has become taking care of the existing highway system. Now, what does that mean? That means implementing a data-driven pavement preservation program to address an estimated $4 billion of pavement needs across the state in the next 10 years. This program includes preventive maintenance, resurfacing projects, and pavement restoration when that's necessary. This taking care of our existing highway system priority one also includes implementing a data-driven bridge program. So pavement preservation and bridge program to address, for bridges, the almost $2 billion of bridge needs across the state over the next 10 years. So a backlog of almost $2 billion there. So taken together, we're talking about $6 billion now over the next 10 years. Now, like the pavement program, the bridge program will focus on timely preventive maintenance and bridge repair with bridge replacement as necessary. This priority one also means working to reduce fatalities and injuries in our highway system by implementing a data-driven safety improvement program to address the $1 billion of highway safety needs and issues across Kentucky over the next 10 years. So now we're talking about $7 billion. And priority one in terms of taking care of the existing highway system means providing for the basic maintenance of the existing highway system by increasing our current maintenance program by $50 million annually. And finally, priority one includes facilitating the efficient flow of revenue shared funds to Kentucky cities and counties to ensure they have maximum access, efficient access to their 48.2% share of motor fuels revenues. Now let me talk about priority two out of the three priorities. Priority two is ensuring the full use of federal highway funding for all federal transportation programs by providing the necessary state matching funds. Now, what does that mean? That means state and local matches where required, and they are required for almost every federal dollar Kentucky receives. So that means ensuring that we are actually doing it and getting our federal share. Federal program is a reimbursement program. Now, what that translates into is we've got to spend the money first and then be reimbursed for these bills. Now, roughly that represents about it's not rough, but it's pretty precise, $736 million for the last several years. Now let's turn to priority three. Priority three is when we've adequately funded the care of our existing system and covered our state matching fund commitments with the federal program, we're then able to pursue projects in the highway plan. So that brings me to the progress on lettings that you asked me about, Mr. Chairman. In 2020, even with the pandemic, even with the effects of the pandemic, where we lost about $60 million, we were thinking we'd lose 160, we only lost 60 million. but the Transportation Cabinet was able to award $632.6 million in new highway construction contracts. And now thinking forward, this year and forward, calendar years 21 and 22, we expect to return to somewhat normal conditions, awarding about $850 million in construction each year. So that's going from 636 back to a more normal or regular pace of 850 million. What are our concerns? You ask about that. Well, most of our neighboring states, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Virginia, and Kentucky, have raised their motor fuels user fees in recent years. It should be noted that for some states, now this is not the only means of funding transportation programs, revenues on gasoline. Tennessee, for instance, also allocates a portion of its state sales tax revenue to transportation. So what we're seeing is that we are actually getting behind, and we're getting behind further compared to our contiguous or neighboring states. Now, what does that translate into? Well, I've spent most of my career, private sector, before I got involved in government and public service, like many of you. I spent my private sector time doing what's called site selection, working for companies that were looking for sites. And one of the first things on the checklist is, what's the transportation system like? You know, is it a robust system? Is it going to give you the connections? Often, this competition is intense. Not often, it's always intense. It will require, an industrial commitment will require that we invest in a road improvement like ones we're currently looking to do in Hopkinsville. It's Kentucky 115 connector near Pembroke, and in Lebanon, the bypass extension. Without road improvements like the Transpark in Bowling Green, Senator Wilson, you know about this, and the Mountain Parkway expansion in Eastern Kentucky, Senator Smith, you know about this one. Kentucky simply would not have been able to stimulate the economic development activities in those areas nearly as effectively. Another concern is project delays and responsiveness. Another byproduct of lower transportation revenues than our surrounding states is the speed at which the cabinet is able to deliver projects and respond to local needs. Senator Hornback, I think you can attest to this. It took years to get Kentucky 53 in Shelbyville from the drawing board to construction. And Chairman Higdon, you know this, our Heartland Parkway project in Marion and Taylor counties has been hung up with federal funding technicalities even after we found the funds to accelerate the project. And we receive calls every day from county judges or legislators asking about a pavement repair or a bridge that's either been closed or needs work. Right now, I have over $20 million of requests for help from counties and cities. When our ability to respond has been diminished, it's still hard to say no because we know these needs are very real. So we've developed tools like Shift to help us prioritize potential highway projects across the state, but limited funding has resulted in the state-funded projects, the SPP projects of the enacted 2020 highway plan being oversubscribed by almost 70 million in the current biennium, by more than 400 million in the 23-24 biennium, and by more than 750 million in the 25-26 biennium. With 1.2 billion more than we can afford already in the 2020 enacted highway plan, we're underwater with little ability for Shift to make a significant difference anytime soon. So wrapping up, we always say, and I think, Mr. Chairman, you've heard me say this, you've heard Mike Hancock say it, you've heard others say it over the years, we will always do the best we can with what we have. And we'll always work to live up to that mission. But please remember, as we started out, thinking ahead, what's the next 5, 15, 20, or 30 years going to be like if we're continue to be in a situation where our revenues are flat and costs are increasing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. We certainly appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to be with us this morning. And I would like to extend the thanks of this committee and the Kentucky State Senate and the General Assembly for the work that your cabinet and your local crews did during this ice storm. They worked tirelessly, and it was a battle against Mother Nature, and they eventually won. But it took a lot of work. So hats off to your crew on that. And also like to thank you. I know I'm seeing a lot of the shift meetings starting to happen around the state, and I think they're going making great efforts to make sure that legislators are aware of those shift meetings where we can participate the best way we can. So I appreciate that's something that we've talked about, and I can tell that you've put that word out to make sure that legislators have the opportunity to be involved. So I think Senator Wheeler has a question for you, Mr. Secretary.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's really more of a comment. I would also like to commend Secretary Gray and his cabinet and all the employees of the Transportation Cabinet. I represent Lawrence and Elliott County, which have been two of the worst hit by the ice storm, and they have really gone above and beyond in District 12 and District 9 and District 10 to take care of some problems, and I want to commend them for that. I'd also like to thank, I know Secretary Gray has been to my district on more than one occasion, and I appreciate his being on the front lines to really figure out what the infrastructure needs for rural communities are. And I think that's very important, and it's clear that he has that as a priority of his as well. So I want to thank you and appreciate your cabinet's responsiveness, and keep up the good work.
Thank you, Senator.
Secretary Gray, I do have one question for you, if you don't mind. And I've just to update, if you don't, I know at one time I was told that Kentucky, we were doing pavement on rural and secondary roads every 8 to 10 years, and that number moved out to like every 12 to 15. Is that accurate on the repaving schedule? And I don't have to have an answer today. I just
I'm going to lean on Ron Rigney here. Ron, or either Ron or Mike. I know that with our revenues being so constrained that it has moved us out. But Ron, you want to comment, or Mike? Are you all on mute? Mike?
Yeah, Secretary, I'll jump in. We certainly will take a look at that, Senator Higdon, and see what the numbers actually look like. But that is not a surprising statistic at all. As the prices rise, as the Secretary indicated during his presentation, and as the monies stay flat going to our cities and counties, then certainly that resurfacing schedule is going to be lengthened.
And I've often told people all you have to do to find out where we did not spend $1 billion the last 6 years, just drive Kentucky roads. I'd look every time I drive, and it's amazing how our roads are deteriorating, and especially after this winter, the needs that are out there for maintenance. So I don't see any other questions, but I'd like to thank each of you for being with us this morning. Certainly, Robin, we didn't get to hear from you, and or Ron, but thank you all for being on the line. Mr. Secretary, thank you for your work and all that your cabinet does, and certainly appreciate the working relationship that you have with the Kentucky State Senate and the General Assembly, and look forward to hearing from you again soon.
Thank you, sir. We always appreciate being with you all and the invitation. Thanks.
Thank you. Moving right along on our agenda, we have before us this morning Senator Storm with Senate Bill 215. Senator Storm, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Senator Storm from the 21st District, and I'm here to ask for each of your support on Senate Bill 215. It is an act relating to reorganization. It codifies an executive order 2020-1027 It reorganizes the Employee Safety and Health Program from the Office of Human Resource Management within the Transportation Cabinet over to the newly formed Secretary's Office of Safety. And in front of you, you should have the bill. There's only two changes in the bill. Basically, on page 2, line 15, it points out that the Secretary's Office of Safety, headed by an executive director appointed under KRS 12.040, which is obviously a governor's appointment. And on page 11, again, on line 20, it talks about underneath the Office of Secretary, there's a subsection 5 which will create the Secretary's Office of Safety. I have Jason Sawilla on the line with me as well, but basically the intent is to prevent work-related injuries and deaths and incidents that, as Senator Wheeler pointed out, we've had a really difficult time in eastern Kentucky, and I'm sure throughout the state with ice storms. And just recently over the weekend, I saw an incident on mile marker 47 in Laurel County where there was a massive pothole that was created, and I think it was on Sunday afternoon, I saw a group of these employees out here working to patch that, and it was very dangerous. It was on I-75, and they had a rolling roadblock going, and traffic was backed up for miles. So again, this is very needed. This is something that will focus on improving employee safety, and I will defer to Mr. Sawilla if he has any further comments.
We have a motion on the bill by Senator Wheeler, second by Senator York. Mike is, who is it that's on the line with us? Mike Cirilla? Jason, do you have any comments?
No, I just appreciate you.
Okay, I mispronounced that on that second. It's Yates, not York. I don't know where I got York at, Senator Yates. I got the Y part right. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Berg,
Aye.
Senator Embry, Senator Hornback, Senator Smith, Senator Storm,
Aye.
Senator Turner, Senator Wheeler,
Aye.
Senator Wilson,
Aye.
Senator Wise,
Aye.
Senator Yates,
Aye.
Chairman Higdon.
Aye.
You got it.
Motion passes, 9 yeas, no nays. Motion for consent, and we have a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Senator Storm, this is not your first bill, is it?
Today was much easier than yesterday.
Thank you, Senator Storm. Senate Bill 215 shall be reported favorably. Our next bill on the agenda is Senate Bill 236. Senator Howe. Senator Howe, the floor is yours. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Following Senator Storm today will be a lot easier than following him yesterday. This is Senate Bill 236. It was House Bill 555 last year that came over here and caught COVID and didn't quite make it across the finish line. It's to modernize some of the ways our clerks handle license plates, increases our efficiency and cost savings in it. I have Godwin Anadu with the Transportation Cabinet online to answer any questions, and if there are none, I'd ask for your support on this bill.
We have a motion by Senator Wheeler, second by Senator Wilson. We do need to have a little bit of discussion on this bill because it does drastically change the way we do license plates in Kentucky, and we'll check in with the Transportation Cabinet and hear what they have to say about this. You say you have good. Godwin on the line with us.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, good morning, and thank you for having me this morning. My name is Godwin Onodo, and I work for the Transportation Cabinet and the Division Director for the Division of Motor Vehicle Licensing. This legislation is needed to improve the quality of our license plates. The improved license plate will enable Kentucky to comply with AMVA national standard for license plates. AMVA is American Association of Motor Vehicle Administrators. The flat plate will also help to increase the readability, which will allow law enforcement officers to identify the owner of a vehicle more easily. And additionally, the flat plate will improve the toll bridge billing accuracy, allowing for a better customer service. It's been estimated that about $800,000 per year in potential revenue is not billed for toll bridge crossing due to the unreadability of the license plates. But more importantly, this flat plate production will allow different configurations of numbers and letters to give more unique plate numbering options. Currently in Kentucky, we have 3 alpha characters and 3 numeric. With the flat plate, we will have a mixture of numbers. It could be 1 alpha, 4 numerics. It could be 1 alpha, 1 numeric, 1 alpha, 1 numeric. With that mixture of numbering options, we will never run out of sequencing. And also, it's very important to note that the flat plate will also allow print-on-demand requests from the county clerks to transportation cabinet, and plates can also be mailed directly to the customers. So it's an improvement, and Kentucky just wants to comply with the AMVA and national standards in plate production. Thank you again. If you have any questions,
Well, I want to thank you, Godwin. I want to do a little more detail. Basically, and correct me if I'm wrong, we're going to somewhat of a vinyl plate that's laser printed on demand, and we're going away from the stamped metal plate is what this does, and it also, the county clerks, they have an option where they can keep an inventory of plates for their customers, or they can choose not to keep an inventory, and the plates will, when someone requests a plate or gets a new vehicle, the plates will be mailed to them. What's the time frame they anticipate those, if they do it that way? If the clerk chooses not to keep an inventory, they register a new car, what's the time frame for getting the new plate in the mail?
Mr. Chairman, currently the time frame is 48 hours. That's the turnaround time for the flat plate to be mailed to that individual if the clerk chooses not to keep inventory of those plates.
And is there a cost? What's the additional cost on 48-hour delivery time is a pretty good turnaround?
Yes, it is. Remember, again, these plates will still be produced from the prison over at LaGrange. And the state contract was awarded to ITI, and they are the same company that produce flat plate for state of Indiana and a host of other states. And with their system and the inventory system, there'll be no cost really. There's no increase in cost for that mailing because the cost of storing the plates, and because if you want to store the plates, you have to prepay for those plates. Now, you don't have to stock inventory and tie up your finances on the inventory. So that reduces the cost. There's a balance there that you reduce the cost of storing the inventory and the cost of mailing, and there isn't any increase, to the best of my knowledge.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions about the bill? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Berg,
Aye.
Senator Embry,
Aye.
Senator Hornback, Senator Smith,
Aye.
Senator Storm,
Aye.
Senator Turner, Senator Wheeler,
Aye.
Senator Wilson,
Aye.
Senator Wise,
Aye.
Senator Yates,
Aye.
Chairman Higdon.
Aye. Motion passes 9-0. We have a motion for consent. Do you have a second? Have a second. All in favor of putting this bill, Senate Bill 236, on consent, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? It will be on consent. Thank you all. Senator Howe, thank
you, Mr.
you,
Chairman.
and appreciate it. Senate Bill 236 shall be reported favorably. Godwin, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Chairman, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is Senate Bill 75. And Senator Wheeler, remember we have a committee sub on that. And motion on the sub. We have a motion on the sub by Senator Wilson and a second by Senator Storm. Senator Wheeler, the floor is yours, and we've already have a motion on the sub and a second. So if you want to get started, let's go ahead and take care of that. That's okay. So we have a motion. So all in favor of adoption of the Senate Committee substitute to Senate Bill 75, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The the motion passes, and we're now speaking about the Senate Committee substitute to Senate Bill 75. The floor is yours, Senator Wheeler.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to thank the members of this committee for being here today. And I'd also like to thank our chairman and Brandon White for the input on this bill that we're here talking about today. Senate Bill 75 is a legislative effort to open up certain state and county roadways in rural counties for the development of an ATV trail system. In fact, timing on this bill, I guess Senator Higdon can see the future. It was kind of fortuitous. Just yesterday, West Virginia issued a report that, and you'll see two articles there in your folder that, this has been they have been at the forefront of recreational ATV and off-highway vehicle tourism, and they had record-breaking permit sales despite COVID because, these outdoor activities are actually one of the safest things you can do at this time. But some of our surrounding states, West Virginia, and Tennessee, have seen the efficacy of developing a off-highway vehicle outdoor tourism industry. In eastern Kentucky, with the downturn of the coal industry, we have seen a hemorrhaging of jobs, similar to what we have seen in West Virginia, and some of our surrounding states that were heavily dependent on coal. What Senate Bill 75 does, it attempts to provide a safe and efficacious way for the counties within eastern Kentucky to work with the Transportation Cabinet on a pilot program for the development of an ATV tourism system in eastern Kentucky. What it does, it provides a process for vehicles, off-highway vehicles that meet certain criteria to obtain a decal permit so that they may be operated on designated county roads. It contains fees within the structure in order to reimburse the Transportation Cabinet for the signage associated with designating these county roads, and it also has some penalties for folks that operate their OHVs on the roadway without the appropriate equipment and decals. I think this is a good bill that could really provide for some economic development in eastern Kentucky, since it essentially allows us to adapt infrastructure that is already there towards an economic purpose by establishing a series of rules and criteria that won't really provide a lot of additional cost to the state. And as we see with what's gone on in West Virginia and some of the surrounding states, there is great potential here. In fact, especially in West Virginia, some of these coal towns that were really on the verge of being wiped off the map due to depopulation and job loss are actually seeing a little bit of a revival. I won't sit here today and say that this bill's the end-all and be-all to save Eastern Kentucky, but I think it's a good tool, a good step to put it on, put the economy back in the right direction. It would be of great economic benefit, and again, I want to thank Brandon and the chairman. This bill passed out of the Senate unanimously last year, a different version of it. We worked over the interim and actually during the session, the chairman and Brandon and I, to refine this bill, I think, to make it even better. So I would ask for your support on this bill. I think it would be a great for economic development in Eastern Kentucky. And I think voting for this Senate Bill 75 is a vote for economic development solidarity for our state.
Thank you, Senator Wheeler. And I want to also point out that Laura Beth and John Snyder
Absolutely.
Also work with us on this bill. It was a full employment at times for staff. And I want to give credit to you. You've been very agreeable with some of the changes that we felt needed to be made, and you've done a good job with the bill. The bill addresses economic development, tourism, and with a big component of this being safety, and we want everybody to be safe. And I think that was always the underlying goal of yours, is to be able to do this and make sure that we kept in mind the safety of the citizens of the counties that this will be located in, plus those who are also riding. And the Transportation Cabinet has a big hand. This bill. The biggest emphasis of this bill right now, counties have the ability to allow off-highway vehicles. There's a lot of different initials, off-highway vehicles, four-wheelers, what have you, but we're talking about OHVs, off-highway vehicles, and the requirements, and there's a whole list of safety requirements they have to meet. But this bill primarily allows for state roads to be used to get from one trail to the other, and the communities that want to do this, there's a you've put included in there a list of what they had to do. They had to have a public meeting to talk about this. They had to make an application to the Transportation Cabinet. Transportation Cabinet has 180 days to look at it and decide if they're going okay the roads requested. There's nothing in this bill that says the Transportation Cabinet has to approve it. So their transportation's going to have safety in mind when they do it, look at it also. So the Transportation Cabinet has to approve this. So I think there's a lot of good. You've included a lot of good safety measures in this bill, and of course it also involves the local government. The local government has to do some rules and regulations to how all the requirements of this bill will be met. So I look forward to passing this and the implementation. Like I said, it is a 2-year pilot project. So as we go forward and we see how this works, we'll be talking about making this bill permanent. We'll be talking about off-highway vehicles and what West Virginia and Tennessee have basically made these vehicles legal on the highway, provided they had all these safety equipment. So a lot of discussions about the future of these off-highway vehicles, and so good luck to you on this, and as it moves through the Senate and then over to the House. So
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Motion on the bill by Senator Emery. We have and a second by Senator Storm. We do have some. I'm getting ahead of myself. We do have some questions.
Okay.
And I know you'd love to have questions. The first one is Senator Wise.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Wheeler, good bill. I appreciate all the work that's gone in on it. I guess my question of looking at the regional authorities to be allowed to do this, I'm looking on page 2. It mentions in there on line 9, the legislative body of a local government located within the boundaries of a regional authority. Is that the regional authority that's part of the Kentucky Mountain Regional Recreation Authority, or is this a separate type of regional authority that it's?
That's correct. I think the only authority currently authorized, Senator Wise, is the Kentucky Mountain Regional Trail Authority. So for the time being, that will be confined to those counties within that district. So yes.
The reason I was asking is when we've had this bill previously, or I think it was maybe Representative Fugit, did that create that? Is my
Yes, I
understanding?
think as I recall, the Kentucky Mountain Regional Trail Authority, I think, was created in either 2017 or 18. I think we funded it for the first time in last year's budget. But that entity itself, the authority itself, is still in the process of developing. This allows some of the counties and local governments within the boundaries of that authority to move forward a little bit quicker if they have the rules in place and the regulations and the plan that Senator Higdon mentioned. So while the regional authority is very important, and I think in the long-term goal to manage this area, this will allow some counties within the pilot area that are a little bit further along to try to get this trail system up and going.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may just follow up, I'm very supportive of it. I'm just hoping, I've got some counties that are right on the line of that regional authority that were not included in the initial pilot for that. Is there any discussion of maybe expanding that? I know right now it's focused, like you said, on Eastern Kentucky, but I've got 2 that are right there along those lines. Has there been any discussion of maybe adding on to?
Well, I think obviously I would love to have those type of discussions. I mean, for the time being, I think one of the things that Senator Higdon and I have focused on with this bill is it is a pilot project. So I think this is going to be one of those learning experiences for the Commonwealth to see how successfully we can implement it. And if it is a successful project, which I fully anticipate it will be, I think that we need to have those conversations you're talking about to expand it to some of Kentucky's other very beautiful counties. That would be great for recreation.
That would be great.
Tourism.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Wise, if this bill was only for the Kentucky Mountain Regional Recreation Authority, it would be special legislation. So if you read in the sub line 11, any other authority established in Kentucky revised statutes effective at the date of this act.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
So I don't know if you guys can get it together by July 1 or not, but that's anything.
I will get on top.
That's,
I will make sure.
anybody that's so it's not special legislation. It does include others. Okay, Senator Yates.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Senator Wheeler just answered primarily my question is looking, as I'm looking at the printout you had, and everybody, I'm sure, thinking of different areas in and around your district that potentially could benefit from it. I appreciate this legislation. I think that Kentucky has got to take advantage of tourism and our recreation. And we keep talking about flatline and how we can bring additional revenue in. I've seen that with some of the concert series that we've had in Jefferson County. But the different recreation stuff throughout Commonwealth of Kentucky. So I thank you for this. Hopefully this is very successful, and we'll have those discussions about expanding it to other areas.
Senator Berg.
Thank you. Just a few questions. Honestly, because I've gotten emails from constituents, not in my district, but from around the state that have some concerns. So I just want to make sure I know the answer. One is a concern about having non-highway rated tires on highways. Does it increase the cost of maintenance of those roads? Do we have to consider that as an issue? You don't have to answer now, but that's one of the questions that has been brought up to me, is that these vehicles tear up the state roads more than vehicles that are designed to be on the road. And then my second question, I think, would have to do with, you may not even know, but does this legislation preclude these off-highway vehicles from putting a little trailer on the back and driving children around in them. Because that's another concern that is being given to me from out in the state, that they're literally putting little kids without helmets, hooking them up to a trailer in the back and riding them on the highways.
Senator Berg, that second issue is not specifically addressed in this legislation. I don't think it is in this sense. I think the setup you're talking about would not be able to comply with the safety requirements that are listed in this bill.
That's what I want to
So
hear.
in that sense, you would not be able to operate a vehicle on a trail system on highway, or I think even off highway would probably be precluded in the situation that you mentioned. So, that would be concerning. I think if you look that a person under the age of 16 in this bill that is on one of these OHVs has to have a helmet if they're being operated on the public roadway. So, safety has been a paramount concern of mine and Senator Higdon's in the drafting of this legislation. What we're wanting to do is have safe, responsible, but also exciting tourism, and that's the goal of this bill.
All right. Any idea about the tearing up the roads? Is there an additional cost that needs to be considered under that?
Honestly, from personal knowledge, I can't answer that question, although I know in many cases people will have pickup trucks with off-highway tires that will go on the roadway. I can't imagine that these vehicles would add any type of extensive damage to the roadway. I think the greater concern I've heard from other people is, they're wondering whether these tires would grip the roadway as well. But no, that has not really been a major concern or a cost that was brought up when we were drafting this legislation.
Senator Wheeler, let's go to the bullpen and see if the Transportation Cabinet, if Jason Cirillo or any of those from the Transportation Cabinet that are listening in have any comments on those questions.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. We'll get back to you on an official answer for that, but I don't believe related to the damage to the highway that a standard off-highway tire would create any additional maintenance needs for that type of vehicle. But I'll check back, and if there's a different response, I'll make sure that you and Senator Wheeler both have it.
Jason, if you will, somebody we need to also answer about the wagon or attachment to the off-highway vehicle, if we need to include language in this legislation as a floor amendment to deal with that, or the bill itself is sufficient. So we would appreciate an answer on that. And Senator Berg, I can tell you firsthand, I got a lot of those emails myself, and I relayed a lot of that to Senator Wheeler, who's worked, and some of the concerns was noise and whatnot. That's the reason for the public meeting, for people to voice their concerns about those types of issues. One thing about the off-highway vehicle or the tires, one of the things, if you read West Virginia's bill and Tennessee's bill where they've allowed these off-highway vehicles to use the roadways, that's one of the requirements that they have tires that are suitable for highway use. And that's to go anywhere. This is going to be a very limited amount of highways that are used. So there's not a need in this bill to get them to change the tires, and so that's.
Like Senator Berg, I could tell you like in Pike County, we have a pretty active trail committee. We have over 700 miles of documented trail. The amount of roadway that we're looking at using is probably 10 to 12 miles. So it's not very substantial. And really another purpose of this bill is to kind of bring order from chaos. There's a lot of this activity going on right now in an unregulated fashion that's really not adding to the economy. So one of the purposes of this bill is to kind of set up a series of rules so that even people that are doing this now are doing it in a safe and prudent manner.
Any further questions? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second, and Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Berg,
Aye.
Senator Embry. Senator Hornback. Senator Smith. Senator Turner. Senator Storm.
Aye.
Senator Turner. Senator Wheeler.
Aye.
Senator Wilson.
Aye.
Senator Wise.
Aye.
Senator Yates.
Aye. Chairman
Higdon.
Aye. Motion passes 9-0. So Senate Bill 75, as amended by Senate Committee Substitute 1, shall be reported favorably. Congratulations. I will not entertain a motion for consent on this one. We need to hear this one on the floor in case there is a floor amendment. And any other questions or concerns that need to be brought before the committee today? Seeing none, a motion for adjournment.